Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. It's been a little while since we did a roundup of EV stocks, and there's been some new developments in EV stocks, so I thought that we would do an update. It has been a brutal couple of months for the stock market. This is the S&P 500, so since January, when we were hovering, we've lost about 20%. So 20% of value has been eroded over a while. Yesterday it looked like it was going up a little bit, but today we're down 4%. It's been rough, and this has translated across to things like Bitcoin. Bitcoin's had a huge drop. Bitcoin's lost about 50% of its value since its peak in November. And then, stable coins, which are supposed to be stable. This one, Terra, has basically lost 100% of its value over the course of one day. And even things like gold and silver, which should be hedges against market volatility, have been falling recently as well. So silver has fallen. And so it's a little weird to see that, which shows you how much I understand financial markets. I just don't, because I would have thought that silver and gold would go up when the market is this volatile and going down and inflation is so high. And then Tesla's also dropped quite a bit. Tesla was hanging around about, what, 1,200? So Tesla's dropped about almost 50% since its peak as well. And the other large capitalized EV stocks, Rivian, has taken a pounding. So Rivian is down, what, 70%? It's a lot. And Lucid is down almost that much. Peaked out around mid-50s, and now it's at 17. And these are two well-capitalized companies that are actually producing EVs at this time, Rivian and Lucid. Then we're looking at the more startup companies like Canoo. This is Canoo. Canoo is down 7% today, so Canoo also similarly has had a precipitous drop. This is Lordstown, also way down. They had this little bump here. You see their volume went up. This is when they signed their deal with Foxconn, and they had a nice little bump from 150 to 227. Now they're kind of back to that. Here's Fisker. Fisker is not doing as bad as the others. They've only lost about 50%. And Fisker's a little bit different because Fisker's not building their own factories. They're doing contract manufacturing. So Fisker is just designing EVs, and they're having other companies build the EV, so they don't have to worry about building out the factories and stuff, which may have been a smart way to go. Here is Electromechanica Solo. They make that Solo vehicle. They're also not doing very well. Here's Archimoto. Same pattern. Sono Motors. This is the other solar electric vehicle. This is the one based out of Europe. And they IPO'd at about $10 and then went up, and now they're down at 2. All right, so what is the development? Basically, I saw this article a few days ago about how much cash burn there is in these EV stocks, and the amount of cash burn that some of these people are doing is fairly ridiculous. So Lordstown has spent almost $1 billion. Canoo has spent about $700 million, and Lucid and Nikola and Fisker have spent about $1 billion each. And so initially it was very easy. All these companies that went public in the last year, there was a lot of enthusiasm, and their IPOs went very well. They raised a ton of cash, and so Lucid has a lot of cash on hand. They have $5.4 billion in cash. Fisker has $1 billion in cash. Nikola has about $700 million in cash. So they have a nice little graph here showing, Rivian has the most. Rivian has like $18 billion in cash, but they're also burning cash at the fastest rate. They burned about $4.2 billion since inception. So their cash burn is a lot. And so this little graph is showing how many quarters of cash do they have on hand. So Rivian has enough cash to last for 10 quarters before they run out of money. 10 quarters is 2.5 years. Rivian is starting to sell, so they have some revenue coming in as well. So they look like they're the best capitalized. Lucid has about 5 quarters of cash, so a little over a year of cash, but they are also selling cars. So if they can get, if Rivian and Lucid can get production up, and as long as their demand doesn't fall, they should be okay. Now, Fisker has 6 quarters of cash left, but they're not producing any cars yet, so they have zero revenue. Same thing can be said with Nikola, Lordstown, and Canoo. None of these companies are building any cars. They don't have revenue. And the biggest problem is Lordstown and Canoo have less than a quarter of cash left. Canoo has like 1 or 2 months of cash left before they run out of money and go bankrupt. So they need to, like Lordstown and Canoo, they need to raise cash because they're not in a position to fund themselves by revenue of their cars because they haven't even produced any vehicles yet. So the way that they can get cash is there's two ways they can get cash. One way is they can try to borrow money, but they really can't borrow money because no one's going to lend them money because they don't have enough assets to give as collateral to the banks, and it's a very high risk proposition. And like, would you loan your money to these people knowing that there's a decent chance they go bankrupt and you're not seeing your money again? So that's very unlikely. They can release more shares. So like, for example, Canoo could release more shares, but their share price is at $3 a share now. So they would have to release a lot of shares to raise that kind of capital. And if they did it when they were at $12, they could, for each share, they could raise 400% more money. So they would have to basically issue 400% more stocks to raise the same amount of cash. That leads to dilution of their current shareholders, and then that reduces the price of the stock. And that's bad because then it's like a spiral. They need to raise more cash, so they release more stocks. The stocks become less valuable, then they have to release more to raise the capital. So that's just a bad deal. One thing that Lordstown did is they sold their manufacturing site to Foxconn and they raised cash that way. And so that's how they got a little bit more cash than Canoo. But Canoo's not, looks like they're not doing that. They're trying to get more private investors to get in and bring them large amounts of money. So it's looking pretty dire for Lordstown and Canoo. Unless they find money in the next couple of months, and a lot of it, they're going to need at least another year of cash on hand to survive until their revenue from their sales ramp up enough that they can cover their costs with their own revenue. That's at least a year, probably longer, because I don't think Rivian and Lucid are going to become financially stable from their revenue for quite a long time. Like Tesla did not become profitable for many years after they started producing cars. So the whole market picture, the entire market being depressed, and EV stocks in general becoming depressed, makes it so that if Aptera goes public right now or anytime in the near future, their IPO is likely to do very poorly because there's just not much of an appetite in the market for startup EV stocks because people have gotten burned on them so much. So I don't think that they're going to be able to raise cash that well by going IPO anytime soon. And in their latest annual report, we know that they needed $50 million they predicted they needed about $50 million to make it to production. Now, they've raised a good amount of the 50 million, so they don't have to raise the full 50 million, but it is a difficult position that Aptera finds themselves in from a financial standpoint. Things were really good if they would have gone IPO back in November. I think they could have raised a ton of cash then, but I think they were hoping that the market would stay stable or not get this bad. And then when they were closer to production, they could get an even better IPO. Or if they IPO'd after they deliver one vehicle, they could get a better IPO valuation to do the production ramp a little bit more efficiently. But now it looks like they need to raise cash even to make it to production. So I'm hoping that they have some private equity partners that can do it, or maybe they can still do it through crowdfunding. I don't know how much of an appetite people have for crowdfunding when the economy is doing kind of not that great and the markets in general are not doing well. Um, but it is going to be an interesting time. One thing that I think they need to do, and this article talks about it, is that all of these companies need to tighten their belt and reduce their cash burn. I think if Aptera doesn't have much cash burn, they're a very small company still, but they do have about 100 employees now, and if you figure that each employee costs on the average of $100,000 with benefits and things like that, you're looking at like $10 million in cash burn. So that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. It's $10 million in cash burn a year just in human resources. That's not including, rent, leases, and supplies. They, I, so if I remember correctly, Aptera had $18 million cash on hand. So they probably have like a year's worth of cash burn, so 4 quarters of cash burn. That's at their current rate, but I think they're gonna have to increase their cash burn to make it to production, which is why they need the 50 million. And that is gonna be um, something that's problematic for them. So hopefully their CFO is looking into this. I'm sure she is. Um, she seems very, very bright and has a great track record and knows way more about finances than I do and probably most of us do. So they're well aware of the situation, but it is a difficult place they find themselves in. I hope that they can find the cash to make it to production. They seem very optimistic still, and the spirits are high. So I think that there's two things that I take out of this. They need to reduce their cash burn as much as possible, and they need to make it to production as fast as possible because once they make it to production, then they get revenue from selling their vehicles, and so they need to stay lean and focus on getting to production as quickly as possible. All right, well, tell me what you guys think about the whole situation. Um, uh, and thanks for watching, and love the discussions in the comments. So I love responding to those and reading those. And if you want, we have a Discord channel that has reached almost 500 people, and you guys are welcome to join. Link is in the description below. And then, of course, I want to send out a huge thanks to our supporting members. Our newest members are Uncle George and Donald Dickerson. Here's our 25 kilowatt members. Our 100 kilowatt members are Enoch, Brian, and Jared. And our 40 kilowatt members are Curtis, Jeremy, Tom, Dean, Go Climb Rock, Adimchi, Uncle George, Neil, John, Don, Paul, Harry, and Paul Ree. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great day.